It is the Anfield Wrap. It's Neil Atkinson, joined by Mo Stewart, Kieran Molyneux and Josh Williams. We're going to do where we feel as though everyone's up to at this point in time, where we feel the Reds are up to. That's the bulk of it, but then we are going to talk about Manchester City, we're going to talk about Arsenal, and then we're going to talk about some other characters who are bouncing around as well, who ultimately I'm just not taking that seriously at this point in time. Before then, I need to point out I have 2 copies of this book, only 2. I'm waiting for the others to be delivered. I'm really worried they're going to send them to the house and not the office, and then I'm going to have to get them in. So we'll see how that goes. But it is the book that I've written about while Klopp was manager, the whole 9 years, with some stuff before and relevant to stuff afterwards, I hope, as well. It's called Transformer. It is wherever you want to get it from. I'm pointing it at the camera there, that one. And it should hopefully go well. There's people said nice things on the back, but you can find that on the website as well. And I'm not yet at the point where I'm going to read them out. Maybe next week I'll be prepared to start to do that and not just sort of cringe and be embarrassed about the whole thing. But they are nice things, legitimately nice things that people have said on the back. Do buy it. The aim is to get it into the top 10. The aim actually is to get it into the top 1 of non-fiction books sold across the course of a week. The way it works is that we've got to sell them all by, I think it's Saturday evening. And it comes out on Thursday, so it works with pre-orders. I've learned a lot about this. I've been sort of bang into this all the way through, and I still don't know entirely why. I mean, obviously it's nice to sell things, but I think there's something wider. I think I ultimately want Jurgen's face looking down on Loughborough Waterstones from the position of number 1 in the pile, and given everything that, you know, everything the way in which it went. I think that's part of the reason why. I think there's also just needle and ego in there as well, so you just have to cop for that. We're doing live shows about the book. The first one is on Edinburgh, at Edinburgh on the 23rd of September, at Malone's. The second one is in London, at a place called Neon 194, which is very central, I've been told. The third one is Beer Keller, and the fourth with Liverpool on the 26th, Thursday the 26th. So it's Monday, Edinburgh, Tuesday, London, Thursday, Liverpool, and then on Friday with Keo, we're in Belfast at a place called Lavery's Comedy Club, which I'm really looking forward to. That will be the Friday night of the week, so that's the 27th. Tickets for Edinburgh, I should be better at this by now. Edinburgh, Liverpool and Belfast are available at theanfieldwrap.com/TAW live, and tickets for London are at theanfieldwrap.com/London for the London gig, which is on the Tuesday. Please buy tickets, please come. It will be good. I can promise that all the way through. It'll be 40, 50 minutes on the book, a break, and then an Anfield Wrap live show thereafter. Really looking forward to all of that. Doors, unless we say otherwise, are 6:30, and we'll go on at 7:15 in all of the places and go from there. Book thing first, break, then mini break, small break, and then Anfield Wrap thing. Okay, and that's all of that. I might do it again later on, but hopefully with some more elegance. We are 3 games in, Mo. Jesus Christ. It's bad enough when it was, you know, other bits and pieces. We're 3 games in, Mo, and the window is closed. We can't start any better in terms of points in general. And I'm going to keep coming back to this. I'm not going to ask you a definitive answer at the start. I am going to ask at the end what are reasonable expectations, who are our rivals. Okay. But right now, what nick do you think we're in? How good shape do you think we're in?
Right now, we look good. We look like we are where everyone would want us to be. I am quite scared about doing this whole thing, and I don't want to kind of kibosh the entire show here, but like if I was given a grade, then it would be an A, but I don't normally give grades at this early on. So I remember the very first day of school, in the very first lesson of school, the teacher asked the question, who knows the other word for a diamond? I put my hand up, said a rhombus. They go, okay, you get a merit mark. Merit marks are what they use to basically control kids. And so I was like, oh, wow, this is great. I got a merit mark on the first question. And did it give me a full sense of security for the rest of the year? Yes, it did. So I'm kind of scared about going in too early is what I'm saying.
That's all right.
But by the same rationale, of the evidence of what we have seen so far, all signs point to be positive. I think the most positive thing for me is that I don't even think that we've started really playing Arne slot football yet. I think we are still very much in the development mode. We haven't seen, from what we expect to see of the way he plays football, we haven't seen many goals created from long periods of possession, opening up a team and then getting in and scoring a tap-in. We haven't seen that yet. We are expecting to see that. But what we have seen is Liverpool look a lot more compact, Liverpool look a lot more secure, but also just as dangerous as they have been at their best. And those two things combined are exactly what you want from a football team.
we've now got everyone's fixtures, Josh. We'll come on to talk about City and Arsenal later on, but we've got everyone's fixtures. I've got City's and Arsenal's sent over to you all, but there's a lot of paperwork, by the way, if you need a paper moving around. There's a lot of little bits and pieces. But we can see our own fixtures and we can see when they fall. And we can also begin to sort of plot out a season a little bit. I'm trying to help Josh here. That top piece of paper there's ours. If you want to look at ours, that one's that one. And then go from there. That could have been smoother. Like the opening. There is though a general vibe, I think, which matters, Josh, of players feeling and being positive. You know, there's big challenges for them to come. Theoretically, some people would have looked at the first three and gone, tough away game in there against Ipswich first day, Brentford in there as well, and then just a really straightforward away game third out. That would have been a reasonable analysis that people could have made. But instead, people got a bit heads up about Manchester United, but they did the decent thing, dominated them, got the other side of it. It's easy. My point here is that it's easy for players to be positive in that regard, but the players have just been nothing but positive since minute one. Every single one of them who's spoken all the way through the summer, and now they've got the reason. They're backed up by the evidence before our eyes. Yeah,
it feels a bit like the kind of potentially turbulent period has already passed. Really, if there was going to be a tricky period, it was going to be at the very, very start when we were trying to build from the back, but maybe got caught a few times because we're learning on the job and stuff. And if we didn't pick up ideal results, that's when the players can maybe doubt Arne Slot in comparison to Jurgen Klopp and stuff. But I think Everton so far, he's passed everything for me with flying colours. I think Liverpool have deserved every win. Aside from one half against Ipswich in the first half, I think we've been largely flawless. A lot more control, I think, than in the previous two seasons. Conceding a lot less in terms of chances. It seems to be difficult to get into our penalty box now, which is, if you're doing these things, if you ignore the results and just focus on the performances are sustainable. And I think last season, for a large period, in a lot of games that we won, we were winning it by absolutely emptying the tank and getting over the line with last minute goals, and we were conceding first very often and stuff. And throughout the season, that we all did kind of have that thought in the back of our heads that, like, can you keep doing this for 38 games? But I think this season, obviously three games in, but so far the signs are really good. I think the players are just becoming increasingly convinced week by week by Arne Slot's methods and stuff. And I think that the fixture run, I think it was a potentially tricky start, but it just hasn't been. We've just navigated it with ease.
But you say the challenge, could have been early in those first three. I wondered if the challenge is actually when we begin to see the congestion. Because that's why I've got the fixtures there. We're coming back. It's Saturday Forest, Tuesday Milan, Saturday Bournemouth, Wednesday West Ham, Saturday Wolves, Wednesday Bologna, Saturday Palace. My point here is that in my big book of what you should expect from those league games, I'm not being complacent about it for a side that's got genuine interest in winning the league. You have got to take sort of 12 points. But also, obviously, the introduction of the new Champions League system in there as well, managing the minutes of the players. I wonder, I think the September run is hard, the October run is harder, and then by the time we get the other side of the November international break, there's an especially mad run of Madrid home, City home, Newcastle away, Everton away, Girona away. They all take place within 14 days of each other, those 5 games I've just said. So my point now is, I do sort of agree with you in that getting the players used to it might have been then, but there is a thing, isn't there, now where this is now where the job is, that of the management of the load, because he's not going to have anywhere near as much training time.
Yeah, definitely. This is going to be the test. The availability that he's showcased so far, not only at Liverpool but at Feyenoord as well, has been good. He's going to need that. We've got a lot of depth, I think, compared to previous seasons, certainly the first few under Klopp. 2 players for every spot, really. If you can keep everyone fit, I think we'll be largely fine. I think the 2 players that we have for every spot, both, I don't think the drop-off, for the most part, obviously there's certain exceptions, but I think the drop-off with most players is just relatively minor. And I think in the first 3 games that we've played, people have been concerned that, Harvey Elliott hasn't really got any minutes, Nunes hasn't played, and all that. Gakpo, listen, they'll play. Don't worry about that. We've had 3 games, 1 a week so far. Play your best team. sound. But then once it starts to get to a game every 3 days for the next 9 years or something, that's when you start using the squad. So everyone will get minutes, everyone will play a part. But I think that's what's crucial in comparison to some other teams. Liverpool have got, I think, like someone asked me recently, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but someone asked me recently if Liverpool's second string team was to play in the Premier League, that full 11, where did he finish? And I think it's probably about 9th or something like that, 10th maybe or something. But that's fine, you know. And there's some players in there that are still champion, like Nunes and Gakpo, and you know, Kwanzaa's good, and you know, players like this, Bradley and that. So I think Liverpool have got the tools there to navigate the season, obviously, even though it's a mad one. But we'll see if we can keep everyone fit. That's going to be a big thing.
The other vibe that we've got to take into account, Keo, comes with the contract thing. So there's been positivity. I think we'll come on and talk about where we think the squad depth is in a minute or two. But the glaring exception is the contracts. It's also worth looking not just at 25. I think it's also worth looking at 26 and 26. By the way, in 25, Yaros, his contract is up. I'm just pointing that out. In 26, Robertson, Kelleher and Konate's contracts are all up as well. There is, I think, on it, Keo, there is a little bit of a thing where there's the big three, they're not sorted. There's a bit of work for the club to be done, I think, here quite urgently, and I think that can only add to the feel-good if the work goes the way in which we want it to, but there are some big decisions to be made.
The main three for me need sorting quick. I mean, it's hanging over us now, isn't it? I mean, we talk about it every single week, the contract situation. I was a bit worried at first. I was a little bit worried because you talk about the wages that these people are going to be asking for. It's not the Liverpool way to have a right back and a centre half in 350 grand a week typically. But I think we're now entering an age where there's that many clubs prepared to pay that type of money. We're going to have to start looking at giving a right back and a centre half 350 grand a week. And as for Mo, I mean, he looks brilliant. And I would give him what he wants, and I'd give him a 2 or 3 year deal. I think there's plenty in the tank. I understand that be concerned. There will be a drop off at some point with Mo Salah. It's happened with every player that reaches a certain age. There will be a drop off. I just don't think it's coming yet. I think he's definitely got a year or two. As the rest of them, as you say, I mean, this is the first time I've actually seen some of the ones which are running out the season after. Kelleher being a situation, we've signed a goalkeeper. Kelleher wants to play. For me, I'd probably allow him to leave, but make sure there's a buyback in there, just in case Alisson does decide in 12, 18 months that he's going, or the new keeper, you know, comes in, is not great, or even worse, doesn't come at all, because it's a while off yet. So we talk about transfers, and now the window was so important. I think looking at that, it needs tying up soon.
Konate's one as well in there that now sort of begins to feature a little bit. There's a little something to point out, Mo, which is I feel a little bit like if I'm Van Dijk or Trent's agent at this point, I think the responsible thing to do is to wait until they do Salah. Is to almost go, we'll wait because we'll see what you put him at, because that'll be a benchmark. And we go from there. I think all the way through we've sort of, wondered on this, and Liverpool could have done it a little bit differently. But right now, if I'm representing Virgil van Dijk, I'm not taking any calls. I'm just feet up. Oh, well, you just take your time, boys. You wait till you think your offer's together, because I'm waiting to see what they do with Salah.
Well, I mean, first of all, that appears to be what Trent is doing, or at least that's what I hope he's doing, because he's been very quiet on this whole situation. He's been very much like, I'm not going to get involved. I'm not even going to entertain the situation. But yes, that is a smart thing to do if you were them to, because obviously Salah is and has been for at least 4 or 5 years now, or the last 2 contracts, he has been the benchmark when it comes to the high earners in the club. He's been the one who's been producing. He's in, as you say, the glamour position, so he's the person who you expect to get those wages. However, if you're Virgil van Dijk, you can turn around and say, well, not only am I the captain of this football club, but my production has been every bit as high as his over the last period of time. The question is, as Josh always likes to say, when you put in a contract, you're not doing it for what they've done, you're doing it for what you think they're going to do. And the question is a harder question for Virgil to say, are you going to be the Virgil we see now in 2 seasons' time? I think if it's Salah, it's difficult, because I think the signing of Chiesa kind of makes things a bit easier for the club to give him a deal, because in a world where it doesn't go well, kind of got a guy there to kind of put in, so you're not kind of having to play him while he's not producing, sort of thing. With Virgil, they've got Konate, they've got Quansah, they've got, well, we don't know how long we're going to have Joe Gomez, but technically he's still at the building. But you'd want another one in there as kind of protection from a potential Virgil drop-off. The Konate one, I've kind of been a little bit flagging that out for a while in the back of my mind, because it's like, I know we're all concentrating on these three, but that's the deal that needs to be done. And I think the way that the perception of him as a player has been over the last 12 months, it's probably for his benefit that he didn't do the deal last season, because he probably wouldn't have got as favourable a deal as he got now, because the injury question was still very live within him. And frankly, he was being kept out of the team by a guy in his first year. So his stock wasn't as high. I think it would be a large mistake for us to let him leave. So I think that that's a deal that we should be concentrating on as well. I'm looking at all of these players you've got on this list, and I'm thinking Kelleher and maybe Robertson are the only ones that I wouldn't say these guys all need to have a new contract.
It is there, Josh, for the club to make decisions on. I think that Robertson, I think they can probably do at their own pace a teeny little bit more. I think more do at your own pace than the idea of anything else. I think you're not too far away from it, approaching the point that I wondered if Kelleher would sign another deal if one was put in front of him, because I think at some sort of point he does need to leave to play football and go from there. I do think the others, and I'd include Jaros, given the sort of the moment that he finds himself in, I think that the others do need to get sorted out. I think one way or the other. I know the way I want them to get sorted out, but I think the club needs to have a genuine sense of what it is doing, so it can begin to make that clear to us, but also make it clear internally.
Yeah, I was thinking about what you said before as well, where you're like, you know, if you're Trent or if you're Virgil or something, you're waiting to see what happens regarding Salah. But to an extent, you can't really do that if you just choose not to extend Salah. Then the benchmark is fair, just really, because that Salah's leaving then.
Well, Trent and Virgil become the benchmark.
Yeah. But then they would have no kind of like leverage to say, well, you give Salah this, and then Liverpool would have to use that from their perspective as like, you know, the order in which they do it. Trent is obviously the most important, but the order in which they do it negotiation-wise and what makes the most sense, what gives them the most power, although they don't have much anyway because of the situation they've been put in, where they're all expiring in the next 12 months. It is scary though, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, the likes of Kelleher, and I think Robertson's replaceable as well. I think, you know, we've got to a point now where he's probably seen his absolute best, and I think there's some, like, say for example, Aït-Nouri. I like Aït-Nouri as a player. I think he's a good player, and he's at Wolves. They seem to have financial issues. Seems to be.
Well, he's out of contract in either at the same time or 2025. Aït-Nouri's out of contract in 2026 himself, which means that next season, if Liverpool wanted to do something, he'd be markedly cheaper than he would have been this.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like a relatively easy swap almost, where you just, you know, one in, one out type thing. But the three big ones that we obviously talk about, they are just unicorns, really. You know, there's no real way of replacing them, and I think that's partially why maybe in this summer Hughes was a little bit cautious in the way he approached it. Maybe he's thinking about next summer being a busy one. Maybe he's, you know, accumulating as much of this budget that he can to navigate this kind of tricky scenario or something. But it is interesting, because I think we all just assume that all three are still boss, keep all three, but it's really not as simple as that. And I think Salah in particular is a lot of it depends on number one, how much he wants, and number two, how long he's going to want on his contract. Because, like, although he's still amazing and he looks as good as ever and all that, you know, it is getting to that point where you think, right, do we cut it now type thing. Like, I was listening to Ted on the way here, Ted Knudsen, and he said he'd walk at this point. And I value his opinion highly. So if someone like that's thinking that way, you know, you kind of wondering what combos are being had behind the scenes at Liverpool, and especially the recent links to Kubo and all that. You know, Kubo for me would be probably a successor, really, if we're being honest. So if you're putting the feelers out there and someone just gone, and you know, things like that. So I don't know. It's tricky. It's scary.
I think it's fascinating, and I don't think there's an answer, but that's that straightforward. I do wonder though that there seems to be a genuine sort of desire on Salah's side. That's what all the noises are coming out with, and that makes me wonder whether or not Liverpool's smart. I think there's something else as well with Salah, which is I think you've got to worry about you've got to take into account the individual. Like I don't think Salah would have that much interest in being a bad Mo Salah at Liverpool. I think he'd rather go and do something else. And I think there's also, to Mo's point, I think the idea that there is a footballer who can help with the longevity question in the squad. I think you almost need to be able to say a couple of things to Salah, but one of them is, okay, we're up for some of this, but you need to accept you're not. We think you're incredible, but part of how we're going to keep you incredible is by managing you more than you've been managed to date, and you can't despise that process. You almost need to roll with. You need to accept that that's part of this now, and that's what's going to keep you really valuable for the key moments when we really need you. On the one hand, and then on the other, you just need to sort of roll with the fact that you might feel great, but you're not going to start. And that's because we want you to feel great for Wednesday's game or feel great for the following Saturday's game. And I just sort of wonder if that almost needs to be part of the process.
That's another thing though. If you're going to get to that point with him where he's not playing the full 90 every 3 days and he's not, delivering to the extent of peak Mo Salah, you're still paying him peak Mo Salah though.
But you're paying him for the output.
You're paying him for the output.
But your argument is that you can keep the output, certainly game in, game out, pretty close to. And you've done a separate deal over here where you've got a cut price option. And part of what that cut price option is the continuance of excellence above a certain level. And that's what we want from everybody all the way through. And that's what you're paying for. You're paying for the idea of you get all of this. And then you've also got peak Mo Salah on the bench. Because you then get to bring him on and go from there. I
take your point, but you don't want your highest earner to be benched. Like ever, really, if it can be helped. I know that he will need that because of his age and stuff, and you want to manage his performances and stuff like that. But that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, if you are paying him more than any other player at the club, in theory, he should be delivering more points-wise than any other player at the club then. And he's going to find that harder now compared to 3 years ago, just purely because he might not be on a pitch as much. And I'm not. This is not me saying I wouldn't do it. But I would do it. But I'm just saying, like, it's not as simple as looking at him, seeing his abs and going, yeah.
No, I don't think it is as simple. I don't think it is as simple as that. But I think what we're talking, I think that the key question on this, and this is the Liverpool question, and we're actually getting to it quite neatly, is what's the increment? Because it's the increment, you see him on the pitch 30% less, at which point, all right, well, that's quite a big conversation. If the increment is you see him on the pitch 15% less, in terms of starts, at the very least, minutes, I think might be a slightly different one, but in terms of starts, if you see him on the pitch 15% less in terms of starts or 10% less in an inflationary wage market for that sort of player, where you've just said it's scary if the situation is scary, the idea of a couple of years of security. And also knowing, as I say, that I don't think the player will be one where if he felt like he needs to be bombed out and was being bombed out, would just sit there and be happy to collect the money. I think you've got all these things here. Yeah. If you've got him on a deal, it can be a little bit different.
Yeah, I think the other thing you have to kind of factor in is the way Liverpool do contracts as well. So if we are going to be still doing contracts that are heavily weighted on bonuses, performance related, him not being on the pitch makes it harder for him to earn that higher money, isn't it? Because the more time he's on the pitch, the more chances he's got scoring goals, got scoring assists, wins, etc., etc. And these are the things that could maybe top it up. So it is going to be a hard conversation around him. And I think it's not going to be an easy conversation with Virgil as well, because the same situation. I mean, Virgil's literally just come out and said that he wants to be playing for the Netherlands till the next World Cup.
And he's a year older.
And he's playing in a position where what we've seen historically is that when the centre-half's legs start to go and they become a little bit more vulnerable, it's not a slow sliding scale, it's a cliff. So if we suddenly need to yank him out, if we have tied him down to a longer deal, and as Josh says, if he's sitting on the bench and we don't really feel comfortable playing him and he's one of the top earners, then that's a situation that the club absolutely won't want to get into. But
so this is why I feel more. So the ironic thing, even though it should possibly go the other way, and normally would, I'd feel more comfortable with Salah on the longer deal and Virgil on the year by year. That's if I was Liverpool, that'd be my. I think with Salah, I think you probably do want to have a period where you've got confidence that he's going to be a Liverpool player, and I think he wants the same thing. I think with Virgil, to your point there, I think Virgil makes, and to the year older points as well, I think he makes more sense on the year by year aspect.
Do you think Salah would want an increase?
No.
See, if he didn't want an increase, I think that makes it a lot more plausible and doable and stuff. But if he does, which is, would it'd be the last big contract of his career. So,
I don't think it is the last big contract of his career.
You think he's going to go?
I think that he
eventually goes to Saudi
or the US. I think if Salah wants at any point Salah wants one more big contract, he gets one more big contract. If he even if he was to sign a 3-year extension at Liverpool, he'd still be in the position to get one more big contract in Saudi or the United States. Look at Messi. Yeah. I think so that's why I think it is different. Whereas I think with Virgil, I think it's a different type of football, a different profile of football, a different journey, a little bit.
So the other question with Salah then is, from the club's perspective, at what point are you happy to not get a transfer fee for him? Because
I think you have to say already.
Because if we're saying that he's still a Salah on the market is still going to be desirable by lots of other people, as a club, you are kind of letting money walk out the door here. And yes, you can say that he's been productive over a certain period of time, so it then becomes a service issue. But if you're doing the same to Virgil, and frankly, I think that Virgil's transfer fee probably wouldn't be quite as high, or he wouldn't be. It makes more sense to see Virgil leaving on the free, I think, than Salah, because I think if Salah can still go somewhere and be productive, I still quite like to get some money from him. Thank you very much.
This is me worry about Salah though, because if he went when this contract ends, I don't necessarily think it's US or Saudi yet. I think he's got something to offer to a top European club, and that's the danger. Where you usually put the fear in me is, if you do it with Virgil, you give him the deal and you give Mo the deal, and you're talking in 12 months' time, they're not playing every week. There could be a situation where you're playing a Premier League game with 700 grand a week sat on the bench. That's just not the way Liverpool have done things in the past. So I'm starting to worry now whether all three get them. After the 3 wins, I was like, yeah, they're all getting new deals, everything's going to be fine. But looking at that, it's a little bit scary, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that we've got rivals who are putting 700 grand more on the bench for games, and I think that's why this gets difficult. And also, this is back to when you look at the fixtures. You say a Premier League game, but the run we're about to have, Forest, Bournemouth, West Ham, Wolves. Josh has got us finishing top 10 playing me a minute ago. There is within that room to manage people, and you've got West Ham in the League Cup, and then that gets thrown in as, well, we don't want to see Salah or Van Dijk playing in that game anyway. Right now, we don't want that. No. I think it is. I think it's where all this stuff meets, and this is why I don't think it is. I think sporting directors a very, very difficult job, but you've got all this information to sort of to flow into. Okay, so we are chatting about defenders there, Keo. We may as well start here. Given 2021, 2020, 2021 and 23-24, and maybe even to an extent 22-23, though I think legs falling off was actually a bigger issue than injuries there. But are we just generally, if I'm going to ask you here, if you think you've got enough defenders, are we just as a fan base scarred by injury hit seasons?
Yeah.
You just think that's
100%. 100%. I remember losing 6 games at home because we had no centre halves, and it was an absolute nightmare, and I never ever want to go there again. So yeah, it maybe is that, and also maybe we're just so used to the way Liverpool, as you were saying before pushing 100% for 95 minutes a week. Injuries come like that. We're a lot more control now. The energy that we're expending is not as high throughout the full game. So maybe the way we've changed things and the way we play, and maybe the new manager might stop so many injuries happening, and maybe we are just being fearful. But I am a little bit. I do think we're light.
So this is the really funny thing. You've just done all the reasons why we might not be light, and then you go,
but that's the fear, isn't it?
Well, that's where I am as well. My issue is I want one more. I want one more defender. I'd want one more defender going all the way through. I'd maybe like a little shift in quality as well, Mo. I'd maybe like a slightly quicker cover left back. I don't want to get into other aspects, but a quicker.
I was about to say that, to be honest.
Quicker cover left back would be no bad thing. But you need 8 or 9 defenders.
See, well, this is the thing, right? And this kind of goes back to something I've kind of said a few times, is that we need is multi-purpose defenders, because that way you can solve both problems. Because you don't need to have as many of them, but you can have as many options in each position. So.
Where are you on my Football Manager retrain Conor Bradley to play left back position, Mo?
Well,
just get that fixed.
Plays
everywhere else for Northern Ireland.
I feel like he should be working on his weaker foot anyway. He's young enough; he can kind of develop that. So we'll see how we go with that one. But yeah, I always go back to the Man City example: Akanji, Aki, John Stones. They're all possibly playing 3 positions, and that's why they're able to keep a tighter squad of defenders. I think we need to be able to learn from that, which is the other reason why I've always been so adamant we can't get rid of Joe Gomez, because he's literally the only one of those we have right now. I'm like you. I think that in my mind, I would like to have another central defensive option, because we are still in the period where we don't know how durable Gomez and Konate in particular are going to be. We're hopeful that, as you guys have intimated, that this new way of playing is going to mitigate some of those injury potentials, but it's the big unknown in every football season. It's that how much do you need to plan for things that are going to go wrong that may not actually go wrong? And then if they don't go wrong and you sat there with all of these players and you're like, well, some of them aren't playing and now they're really upset and now what do we do? You've got to be really careful because it's a knife edge. It really is a knife edge. And you don't know which way you need to fall until you get there. So you said before about the Liverpool's run in December. I think when we get the other side of that Girona game and we've played 6 of the 8 Champions League games and we've played 15 Premier League games, it's the 10th of December. If we are absolutely counting down the days, staring down the calendar to the 1st of January, then I feel like we'll know exactly the answer to this question a little bit harder. But for now, I think I'm going to trust that the manager can manage the squad as is. It's in a similar way to you'd say that it's clear that he felt like another midfielder was needed because we literally tried to buy another midfielder. I don't think you can really say the same with defence. I think the Lenny Yoro thing was very much just a bit of a fly if we can get someone. I don't think it was a case of we need a defender and we've said he's the defender. So I feel like the coaching staff at least are probably a little bit more trusting that we've got enough.
Enough quality?
Enough numbers, I think we're fine, yeah. Quality is a good point though. I think numbers-wise, I think if you was to come in and you weren't a Liverpool fan and you was to have a glance at it, I think you'd be like, yeah, you've got 2 players for every spot. What are you moaning about? Do you know what I mean? I think the problem is, as you say, quality. I think Kwanzaa is a bit half-baked at the minute, a little bit. Brilliant player, I'd keep him around, definitely. I think his ceiling's high, but I think we saw against Ipswich, he's going to have moments like that. So if you are going for the Premier League title, you know, you ideally don't want to have to play a player like that in games that really, really matter. Maybe you'd play Kwanzaa in domestic cups and stuff like that still for a couple of seasons or something. And I think Gomez, I would have been a bit more in favour of selling Gomez and getting in someone who could cover Virgil a bit better and potentially eventually succeed him as well. I think that's the one spot maybe in the back line that we don't have 2 players for. I think if Virgil didn't play, you play Gomez over there or Kwanzaa or Konate or something, they can obviously do it. It's still centre half, but it's not the left-sided centre half. The only player we've got for that really is Virgil, and we've got no left footers in there either. So I would have liked that to happen. There's also a question mark, I think, about Gomez's quality in a centre-back role. We haven't really seen him do it now for over a season, and I think there's a reason maybe why, you know, Klopp and Linda took him away from that. I think having him as your last line of defence almost seems to sting us a little bit. Just, I think, if he made an error in that spot, you can see the shot. If you make an error as a fullback, you've still got a centre-back behind you, so maybe you don't concede the shot on the back of that. So I think we almost give him his confidence back by playing him in positions where he would have a safety net behind him if he messed up. Whereas if you play him as a centre-back, that's a bit more problematic. So seeing him as a centre-back on the slot, where you are taking risks on the ball and you've got to be bold, you've got to stick your chest out. You know, I'm intrigued to see it, but that won't be easy for him. But I think generally, you know, I'm being picky. I think generally we are fine in terms of numbers, certainly. Although I would have wanted another centre half, but I think everyone's going to say that.
All right, move on to midfield. I'm counting Elliott and Szoboszlai solely as midfielders. But the obvious thing to say, Keo, is there's no getting away from the fact that they wanted one more. We know they wanted one more. We know his name. We know where he lives. We know that there's mountains. And this is just sort of, you know, there's no getting away from it, as I keep saying it. There really is. They're going to try and work around it with some sort of combination of Endo, Morton and Nioni. From the look of it, Curtis has already had an injury, which is always your Curtis concern. They wanted one more, and they wanted one more for a reason.
And they still probably do want one more, and they probably look for the next one. But right now, we're all feeling quite good because Gravenberch has started so well, and he looks amazing. But as we were saying before, the old Liverpool case of injuries can happen, and we don't want a situation where we're struggling. I'm all right with the fact that they walked away from Zubimendi. Sorry, not walked away from him. They walked away from trying to find somebody else last minute in the window. They sort of parked it and they'll try and find the man. We've seen this happen before, and I've said this on shows. And you've got to trust these because they literally built the best team we've ever seen and the best squad we've ever seen. So that this transfer policy has paid off in the past. So waiting for your man, it might work. I'd like to have one in there, though, because if we are with an injury through away, Jones can pick up injuries. You've just mentioned that. Endo, there's doubts over him, playing in Premier League and Champions League games. So we're going to have to roll with the punches, I think, and hope Gravenberch just keeps having stormers.
John, just on it though for now, I think Gravenberch, plays first game back against Forest and probably then, plays through that week, goes away to Milan, comes back and goes from
then
there.
You look at this.
You got the West Ham game, but I think also even possibly the Bologna game at home. It's worth saying Endo last season, around October, I don't think any of us were convinced by January. What I'd say is he's captain of his country. Last season he looked really coachable. He was captain of Stuttgart. To me, he looks like the sort of footballer who get him on the training ground, keep working with him, see what you get. Morton does do well on 2 loan spells and has grown as a player. And the only we are excited by, I don't fucking clip this bit. This is not me not saying that I don't want one more, I do. But my point is more, I'm not looking at it going, well, it's impossible that something happens internally in the short term. Even if that something did happen internally in the short term, I'd still want another player. But it's not impossible, is it, that a couple of them can grasp the opportunity if they get one? It happens in footy all the time.
I think that's why they've not panicked in the last week of the window and gone anybody in, because they do believe in them. So hopefully you're right. Hopefully you're right, and we're sound.
I'm going to ask you a couple of saucy questions, Mo.
Oh, hello.
Be prepared. For the quality of what we've got so far, the quality of what we've seen, and the demands that are on the 3 players who are playing in those positions, if everyone's broadly speaking fit, how many starts between now and Christmas does Kobbie Mainoo get if he plays for Liverpool and not Manchester United?
So I knew this one was coming. So
I've written it down, yeah. So, not before 10 a.m.
I didn't actually see that one, so I'm glad you didn't ask me.
You're getting it in a minute, go on.
So my initial answer is more than Wataru Endo, but probably less than a fit Curtis Jones. In as much as I think, again, he's coachable. He has some of the qualities that you want from a Liverpool player playing in that position, as in he's good at taking the ball in tight spaces most of the time when there's another player in his same shirt near him. His passing range, his passing volume are the area where I'd be worried. Because if you look at it, when he's playing alongside Casemiro, as we saw last weekend, Casemiro is the one who's doing most of the ball playing. That's his job, isn't it? Mainoo's job is to fill in, make tackles, cover space, and then pass the ball short to the other guy. Now, what we've been saying is that whole role, that whole skill set is the reason why Wataru Endo isn't going to be playing as much. So I don't think that he would get in ahead of Gravenberch for sure. Don't think he'd get in ahead of Curtis Jones. He is young. He can potentially develop that as a skill.
So we just treat him like a normal young player who's ready to break through. That's the key question here. Because this is about quality. Because my next question is, name a player from Villa or Spurs that you'd add.
See, I thought about this also. And
player or a midfielder?
A midfielder.
So Spurs, it's difficult. If Bentancur was 5 years younger, I'd maybe have a look at him. But outside of that, I'm not 100% sure.
If Basuma wasn't a head case.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great point, by the way. That's a great point.
If Basuma wasn't a head case, I think you could make a bit of a case for it, but he's a head case, so that's the way it is.
From the more deep lying stocks, I'd like to see how Boubacar Kamara recovers from his injury, because I think he's another one who's young, who actually is better on the ball, and can be moulded into that role. But if we're looking further towards the opposition goal, then I think we'd all like a look at Morgan Rogers, wouldn't we?
Well, no, but he's not counting in this. He's an attacker for the purposes of this.
I'm midfielders here.
I'm having pure midfielders. I don't see him doing what Szoboszlai's done for us so far in the same way. He's too direct. He wants to go a goal all the time. Szoboszlai's just been linking it up. I'm saying Szoboszlai's a midfielder.
Okay.
Well, I like Morgan Rogers, but let's not lose our heads.
Well, then Boubacar Kamara's my answer then.
Is there anyone you take from Villa or Spurs? Because this is the quality point. Villa finished 4th last season. Spurs finished 5th. They're both invested money. Who would you take?
I don't think I would, I don't think there is a player that you're looking in the midfield. Maybe there's attackers in there that from Spurs and Villa that you'd have in the squad, but no.
And Kobbie Mainoo would just be like another young player.
Yeah, I agree with Mo. I think he probably gets slightly more game time than Endo, but I don't think he comes in and plays every week or anything like that. No.
Mainoo, Villa, Spurs. Any direction you want?
I think Spurs. I agree with Mo. I think Rodrigo Bentancur, I think a few seasons ago would have thought about it. Now, no. They've just got a new lad called Bergvall. He looks boss, but he's, I think, a bit more offensive, a bit more like Elliott.
He's whether or not he's having ahead of Elliott. I haven't seen Elliott kick it yet for us this season.
Yeah, I think he's only 18, but he's one to watch him now. And I think before the summer, I'd have said Arne, who's just gone to, obviously from Everton. I do rate him as a player, but now seeing Slot's game, I'm not sure. You have to be supremely technical to play for Arne Slot, especially in that midfield. But that's why Gravenberg's thriving.
I think you could make a Kulusevski argument, but I wouldn't be picking him ahead of Szoboszlai in terms of what we're asking Szoboszlai to do at the minute. And then we haven't seen Elliott get the opportunity to do it yet. One thing, though, just dead quick, it is Curtis's fitness. I'd love Curtis to bounce back into that game against Forest, start it, and then just be available for the run at least until the next international break, off the basis of just being able to go, all right, that's behind us. I think he's suited to this down to the ground, Josh. We've just got to get him on the pitch.
Yeah, I agree. But the only thing I'd say on that is I was quite surprised at his performances in pre-season. I know it was only pre-season and that, but he played, I think, the Gravenberg role pretty much in pre-season. And just didn't really play it that well, if I'm honest. Like, he was taking heavy touches. If there was lots of space for him to carry the ball into, he'd push it forward too far to the extent where he just gets it nicked off him by an opponent. So he should be good at it. He should be an Arne Slot player in that, but I'm not sure he's the sixth answer that we maybe initially tested him as. I think he's probably a bit more of an eighth for Slot.
He scored against United when he played next to Gravenberg.
Yeah.
In the pre-season,
but he's got a lot of potential. Still only, how old is he? 23, something like that. 24. Good size, good technical ability. I think he's of the level technically. I just don't think he showed it that much before his injury. But get him fit. He's the only player that really, isn't he, that Slot hasn't been able to keep fit so far, really. So, it's one to watch, but, he's got a lot of potential.
I'd like to look at him in the Mac role and maybe have Mac doing the Gravenberg role and see how they work as a pair. I think,
or give Mac an occasional rest.
never
happens.
Yeah,
or play him next to Gravenberg. Or go from there. There's opportunities to rest. I think it's going to be 2 from the 3 a lot of the time, and you go from there. That's fair enough.
But yeah, I think part of the reason why at the top of the show I was still kind of a little hesitant with my praise is that I think that we've seen a really good showing from the first 11. Maybe you'd add Bradley and Gakpo in there and call it the first 13. But to know how well this squad is adapting to these new tasks, you need to see everybody. And you're right, Neil. I think this next run would be where Arne Slot would have definitely earmarked to say, let's have a look. Let's have a prolonged look at Curtis and see where he fits in.
Attackers then. Any remaining keys are out, Keo? All feel good for you as it's going at the minute? You can't ask for much more, I don't think. But
No. Like, the price tag was cheap. He's come in, he looked dead happy. I've seen clips of him training with the 23s or the 21s the other day. He's taking the mick out of everyone. There's a video of him when he first signed and they're driving him down Lower Breck Road, and he's like, "Mamma mia!" when he sees the cop and that. He's absolutely made up, and that's what you want, isn't it? So
he's the happiest anyone's been down Lower Breck Road for many years.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm feeling good about it. I want to see him play. I can't wait to see him play. Some players just come in and just generate excitement, don't they? And sometimes it's because of the things they say, sometimes it's because of how good they've been. But we're talking about a 70, 80 million pound player a few years ago here. And I seen a stat from the Euros about his top speed, and he recorded his top speed ever at the Euros this year, and it was a couple of points behind Szoboszlai, who we know is rapid. So the old argument of your ACL goes, you never find your pace again, that's out the window, because he's running faster than he's ever ran. He looks sharp in training. Just get him on the pitch.
Yeah, so obviously I'm quite well known by now as being someone who was quite scared of the injury situation. I've kind of looked into it a lot more, really studied him over the course of the last season, watched him, how he runs, how he accelerates, how he moves laterally. And it's fair to say that he doesn't think that there's still a problem. He is still attacking football as if he is still 100% full strength. And that's really, without actually seeing him on the pitch yet, all we can really ask for so far. So I'm a little bit less concerned about that side of it. But that was the only small concern I had about this signing as a whole. As an actual footballer, I think he's fantastic. I've been kind of hoping that we would sign him for about 5 years on and off. So I really am pleased to see what he can do in this team. And then you look at the way that we've been utilising our wide forwards so far, not only just in terms of one-on-one duels, but the ability, the strength to hold the ball up, to maybe receive a pass from the goalkeeper, turn and go at his man, or lay it off and then start again. These are all things that really should suit him like a duck to water. So if he is able to come in at the right times and be 100% fit, I think he can really get off to a flying start.
You were always all over him. Like me, Josh, think he's the business. Just dead straightforward question before we move on and talk about our rivals. Effectively, how many league goals do we want/need from our fifth highest attacking scorer?
Fifth. League. Even though we've got 6 nowadays, haven't we really? I think...
Again, it's another saucy question. How many league goals?
I think in an ideal... league goals?
Yeah, league.
I think in an ideal world, you want them all in double figures, to be honest. But I could probably deal with the worst being 8, something like that, maybe. But
so what's your fifth? If your worst's 8, what's your fifth?
Yeah, more than 10. I want more than 10.
More than 10? Any answers?
I was going to say double figures. I'm interested to know what our fifth top scorer got last year.
I should have looked that up before I asked the question.
I reckon he got 7 or 8 or something like that.
I think it'll be Diaz or Gakpo with 8.
I think Diaz and Gakpo scored the same, I think.
So they both got 8 league goals. Diaz definitely got 8 league goals last season. And they were fifth, but not fifth out of 6th, fifth out of 5, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And we're trying to close a gap. So, yeah, double figures. Is that right? Is that right, Mo? Look at me. Like you, getting like you, Josh. But yeah, double figures, I'd say 10 goals.
For the fifth one in the league, I've got 13 written down, Mo.
I think a lot of it depends upon how many games they'll end up with. We're all kind of working out, or should I say minutes really, rather than games.
Yeah.
Like you can get into a situation where some players are coming on at 85 and some players are coming on 65. So I want to say if their minutes per goal is averaging about 1 in 2, or between 1 in 2 and 1 in 3, I think we should all be happy with that.
Yeah, I'm very much. I'm in a world where I'm sort of into being able to throw a bit of a blanket over, say 3, 4, and 5, because you feel as though you've shared it out, and then there's been excellence elsewhere, and hopefully that's happened with the injuries. Manchester City, fucking Gundogan. I'm furious about it, Josh. I'm fucking furious about it. I feel as though someone should have stepped in. Like someone should have just gone, come on.
I know.
I've took it really badly and really personally. I was quite sort of relaxed about City. I still am relaxed about City as far as I'm concerned. They're Arsenal's business and we're going to do our own thing for a while. And then everyone's going to realise, and I'm going to talk about Arsenal in a minute, that Arsenal are a bit fucked. And then it might become us again, and we're going to have to just all be grown-ups about it and not fucking cry ourselves to sleep. If you're listening to this, do not be crying yourself to sleep about Manchester City. You're going to have to just be a grown-up about it. I'm saying, honestly, this is the pep talk. Do it, grow up. It's happening. I could have just done without Gundogan. Savinho looks good, and I thought he'd look good, but I could have just done without Gundogan.
I know, same. I think what's really annoying as well is I don't think they replaced him particularly well. I think
oh no, that was past the point.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like they got in Matthias Nunes for I think over 50 million. I think he starts 8 Premier League games, and he was getting rumoured in the summer to be loaned to Atletico Madrid or something. And then they signed Kovacic, who he's all right, he's fine nowadays. I think he's about 29 now, is he?
30,
something like
30,
that. 30.
Yeah.
So I think he was okay, maybe stopgap temporary replacements. I think they should have got Ali Mach as his replacement. I think he was perfect to be Gundogan's successor, but he went to Liverpool. But then 12 months later, they just get Gundogan back, which is just so annoying. And it sums up Manchester City though. It sums up. They can make huge mistakes in the market financially maybe, but just rectify it 12 months later by taking a hit, or in this case, just getting the fella back that you lost. So very annoying, and he's that good that he could tip the scale, couldn't he? In terms of just getting them that win for the title. He could be the difference maker. So very good
it's the fact
player.
that you've seen him be the difference maker 2 or 3 times before. And when I say 2 or 3 times before, I mean 2 or 3 seasons before. That's what drives me mad about it. Like, genuinely, that's what just made me go, oh, come on.
He's that much of a winner that he starts falling out with people in Barcelona because of it. Because he's got that culture ingrained into him now, because of Manchester City and Pep and that. So why Barcelona are letting them go, and I I don't particularly know on that one. Probably financial. No one that club. Yeah, but he is still a top player, and yeah, very annoying.
I saw this coming a mile off. I'm not going to lie. For all the reasons we've highlighted, Gundogan being genuinely unable to deal with the basket case that is Barcelona. Like, think about the sereneness of a Pep Guardiola system, and he had to kind of be very comfortable with, and the success. And then he goes to that absolute insane asylum. A guy like Xavi, a club legend, even he couldn't hack it. Even he didn't want any part of it. So you can understand how someone like him would be looking around the dressing room thinking, wait, this is the famous Barcelona? This is what I've come to? No, I can't handle that. Number two, he still has the house next door to Guardiola. He never gave that up. So there was always a case where he would be able to come back.
Does he knock around, does he?
Yeah.
I didn't realise.
Yeah, they live on the same street. And also there's the third part where he's thinking about the future. So he's thinking about becoming a coach. And again, he had the word with Hansi Flick, and he's like, well, to be honest, I'd quite like to be Pep's coach. And I mean, I like you and everything, don't get me wrong, but it's going to be a lot easier for me to be a coach back over there. So I saw all this coming. The interesting thing for me is the only person who might not be happy to see him back is Kovacic. Because I think Kovacic was really starting to feel like he could lay claim to that Gundogan position. He could be the one who comes into the midfield and actually does keep things ticking over. So
a lot of games though, Mo. A lot of games.
It is a lot of games. So you'd think that they would be able to coexist, but anyway, the Man City question. You sent us the fixtures. The thing that screams at me. We talk about Liverpool's tough run or tough run out coming out of the international break. We're going to get onto Arsenal's tough run in a minute. City have got 7 of the next 10 at home.
I know it's mad. I don't know quite how with this. Who should get in touch with?
And one of the away games is Slovan Bratislava, where you can imagine they're not going to play most of the front game. And one of the other ones is Wolves, who in the past have caused some problems, but look nowhere near doing that this season. So you look at that and you say, okay, Newcastle away might give them some trouble. They gave them some trouble last season. And outside, obviously, you have to mention the fact that they are playing Arsenal and they're playing Inter, who are two very good football teams. But at home, you expect City to have enough. And then it becomes a point where how many of those 10 games you expect them to win? And frankly, my answer is at least 9. And then where do we sit at after that?
No, 100%. I think it's worth pointing out City's run, and I'm glad we can be realistic about it. That 12 against Newcastle does have a bit of a star next to it. Well, literally, because I've just drawn one on my bit of paper. But I think, in general, I think it is a neat run for them. Keo. The one thing I would say is that the squad's dead funny when you look at the page because they've only got one lad they call the centre forward in there. They've gone without Alvarez. I think it was the right thing for everyone. The Alvarez thing, the amount of money he gets good. Alvarez probably needs to go somewhere where he's the main man. He may well suit Atletico Madrid, one of those ones that suits everyone. But we know it's a formidable outfit. We know what they're up against. We know that the Champions League draw could have been a little bit tougher for them. I think there's a couple of sneaky ones in there that they probably can't be bothered with when they have to deal with the reality of them. But we know they're a really, really good side. I don't think we should be coming into this. Is why I'm almost saying let's just ignore them at the minute. We crack on with our own business. They can do their thing, and they may well break Arsenal in the process.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'm not going to lie. If you said to me when you're going to ask me in a minute who's our rivals, I'm going to say City and Arsenal because they're the ones you've got to keep up with. They're the ones who've been setting the standard for the past couple of years. Man City are a machine. They're an absolute machine at the minute. Haaland especially, he's scoring goals left, right and centre. So, I mean, I expect it to continue. I'm just not going to look at it properly until after Christmas, and we're going to focus on ourselves, which is sort of what you're saying to me in the pep talk. Don't get too carried away with what's going on with Man City.
Honestly, don't worry about City.
And I get that, but I mean, it's going to be hard for Liverpool fans to do that because the better we play, the more you're going to believe that we're in a title race, and the more you're going to believe it's possible. So it's natural to look at. I mean, I'm literally doing it now. I'm looking at City's fixtures now, thinking where are they going to drop points? Just keep winning, and as you say, focus on that after Christmas.
To keep winning is the key thing for us, Josh. That's why it is massive. I think this little run the other side. I think we've got to stay as close to perfect as we can do in all 4 of these league games that's coming up because of City. But also, we've been here before. We've just got to do our thing, and if we do our thing, then it only matters when we play them. Yeah,
well, this is the first time I've looked at City's upcoming fixtures, and I didn't realise it was that smooth.
You're about to look at Arsenal's, by the way. let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to City, at least, it is just going to be a case of either sticking as close to possible with them up until Christmas, you know, within touching distance, or the other side of it is just ignore them. And that's,
Ignore them.
That's probably what I was going to do, yeah. It's so annoying, and you're looking at a minimum of 90 points to get anywhere near them, and teams just historically don't get 90 points very often. So that's very, very annoying. But yeah, just stick with them. I think the Haaland thing, he's formidable, definitely, but he historically doesn't play every single game, and they've got Club World Cup games, haven't they, City? So
that's the end of the season. If it even happens, it'll be the end of the season.
Ah, okay, yeah. Well, even so, City are going to be playing a lot of games, and that rotation option that you have with Alvarez is no longer there. You'll probably just do false nine stuff with Foden or something, and I think they'll be fine. But you know, every season, as I said before we started recording, every season we look for some kind of weakness, some kind of hole in Manchester City, and it just never materialises. And I don't think it will materialise until Guardiola leaves. So hopefully this season he just gets off.
Arsenal, we got this situation where I said Timber's injured at the time of type, but he's actually not now. He went off though, noticeably last time out. They got Marino. The two above, Calafiori, Timber being back. Marino make them bigger and tougher. Sterling offers a quality option either as a starter or otherwise. It's a better squad than last year's, Mo, but there was major expected goals over performance last year. They were great from set pieces and overperformed from set pieces. Both of those things are true at once. Yes. Things broke for them at set pieces, but they were good at them as well. Everything bar Timber went for them last year. It's not insurmountable, but then you'd also do the thing on the run of games, which I didn't mean to do when I printed these out, but you just look at this next run. Sunday away at Tottenham, Thursday away at Atalanta, Sunday away at Manchester City. And then they've actually then got a tough one coming up in Europe as well against Paris Saint-Germain at home, where Paris Saint-Germain have got to beat someone, as Paris Saint-Germain got the Swiss system of death, to coin a phrase that's not been made yet. The Swiss system of death for Paris Saint-Germain.
Doesn't quite roll off the tongue the same way.
Doesn't know, but it is. It has been for them, so they've got to get results somewhere, Paris Saint-Germain. I think that Arsenal are in for a pretty tough run, and even when you extend that into looking into November, they've even got a run in October into November where they managed to have Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, Inter away, and Chelsea away, all across a sort of a 9-10 day period. My point is that Arsenal are going to be tested.
Yeah, and it's a really weird kind of symmetry because, like you say, they've got the week of away games at the start of September, and then again at the start of November, and then in October they were bookended by the two big home games against us and PSG. So there's plenty of tests in there. The other thing we have to mention is that in terms of, like you say, everything going right for them last season, it already hasn't this season. They're going into the North London derby without Declan Rice. Mikel Arteta is going to have to pick an Arsenal football team without Declan Rice for the first time since he signed it.
And Marino was also not there to come and fill in.
Yeah, he's not there to come and fill in.
Steve Morrowed himself week one.
Nice reference.
One for the teenagers.
Yeah. So I'm fascinated to see, because I do think if you look at the way that they played last season and the way that Spurs were able to come back into the game this season, I think that he was hoping to be able to play Rice, Odegaard and Jorginho as his midfield three. I don't think he'd want to have to play Jorginho and Partey as two of those midfield three, because we'll say what we were saying before about Spurs and whether or not we take them. I think in terms of how they can potentially harm this Arsenal team, I do think that they have the tools, they have the running power, and they have the intelligence in wider areas, I think, that can really start to hurt them. So how they deal with that is going to be fascinating because, as you say, Atalanta away. Atalanta, they're a funny team. When you expect them to do well, they do terribly, and vice versa. So I don't know how they'll react to being in the Champions League at this point, but it's not going to be an easy game, that's for sure. And then they have City. And the fact that they are already behind City, and the fact that for Arsenal, the pressure on this, like you were saying before about us, we have the ability to just forget about them. Because we are...
It's one of our special powers. That's why I keep hammering it. Like, at the minute, that Arsenal are in this thing. Let them be in this thing, at least until the end of fucking September.
And we've been, over the course of Liverpool's history, we've been where Arsenal are now, where you've got a bit closer, and you've got a bit closer, and everyone's like, well, now, this is the year you have to take them. And then if it doesn't happen a third time, that, oh, well, you know, you did everything you could. That starts to, that you can't really use that card 3 years in a row. Then everyone starts to look around and be like, well, do we need to change this? Do we need to change this? And then there's the other elephant in the room, the fact that Arteta's contract is still not been signed. And you get to what we're saying about Pep Guardiola and whether or not he ends up leaving at the end of the season, and Arteta starts to think, well, maybe I just can't beat these guys, so maybe I can join them. And then if that happens, the whole thing comes crashing down.
I don't think we even need to wait that long, Keo. I'm looking at this run here, even quite early on with them with Arsenal, but also just in general, they've already dropped the 2 points. I think that's massive. I think it's so significant. At home against Brighton, they got through the hard one against Villa. You'd have sort of dealt on 7, but they've almost ended up feeling like they've shot themselves on the foot 7. And then if it begins to go wrong, we've lived it before. I think because you feel as though you're up against perfection. That's what Josh was just talking about. You're challenging perfection. When you're not perfect, it hurts twice as much, 3 times as much.
Yeah, and looking at them fixtures, that's the last thing you need. I was the same as you. I hadn't looked at Arsenal or City's fixtures in this much detail going forward, but take the fixtures away for a second. Just the mentality of chasing City for 2 years, it's absolutely draining. Absolutely draining. And I've got my own beliefs around Arsenal that they peaked last year. You're saying before about things just fell for them with set pieces and stuff like that. I think they had an unbelievable season last year, but slightly overachieved to run City that close. Looking at that there,
and did nothing in Europe as well, and there's onus on them to start to do something in Europe, and also you don't get out the Swiss system taking it easy. You're going to have to perform. The group they got last year was almost like a Europa League group.
Yeah, that's true, to be fair, that's true. And you're saying there about the fixtures, Atalanta and stuff, like we've been scarred by Atalanta recently, and Paris Saint-Germain, do have to turn up at some point. So the Champions League games are tough. I was looking at the start of it when you got Spurs, City, but then you go down to November, the next 3 months are really, really, really tough for them.
Their November's horrible. Like.
It's horrible, isn't it?
I mean, they're basically at home for the entire of October and then away for the entire of November. But throughout, playing good sides no matter what. And as I say, like when Liverpool eventually took the title from City, they took that title as European champions. They'd won the Champions League the season before. So that kind of burden of we need to win something had gone. With Arsenal, obviously Arteta wins FA Cups initially at the very start of his tenure, but this group he's got now haven't really won anything and haven't really came that close to winning anything either, really. They haven't really reached any finals, I don't think, that they've lost. And in terms of finishing second to City, I mean, Liverpool finished second by a point, I think, before we went and won it. Whereas Arsenal...
And won the European Cup in the same season.
Yeah.
We were the best team in the world at that point.
Yeah. Whereas Arsenal haven't really had that. So, yeah, and some of the signs as well, like Calafiori, I think is a good player. But I think, unlike some of the Chiesa talk, I think Calafiori is genuinely injury prone. And I think he's already picked one up as well. So, it's going to be interesting to see how they get on, really, because I do think they're a top side, but I'm not sure they're prepared for the season, that they've got the number of games and all that, and the depth and stuff. I think Arteta seems to be weird when it comes to using his 13th player, his 14th player. He seems to be very like first 11 and that, and to do that throughout that run is going to be hard.
I want to just do very briefly Villa, Chelsea, Newcastle, Spurs, Brighton. I've paired them and I've written them down, so we'll sort of run around them quickly as pairs. Villa, Spurs, I worry for both with Europe thrown in, Mo, but both have got quality. They're very contrasting sides. Actually, it occurred to me, Emery, very, very solidity first and foremost. Postecoglou, very much an ideologue, I think, in terms of what he wants to do. I'm expecting to have really genuinely quite similar seasons, albeit with Villa in the Champions League. As I say, when I say I worry for both, I suspect... My point here is I don't think they're our business or will be our business by the time we get to Christmas on both of them. I've got a concern Chelsea/Newcastle. Brighton might end up being a bit more our business, weirdly, because I think that the European bits and pieces could just absolutely batter Villa and Spurs.
They could. I think Villa, they've kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit because all of this whole thing around the ticket prices is kind of diluted one of their big advantages in Europe, i.e. the fact that they are at home and they haven't played in the big leagues for so long, and they can use that to kind of get them over the line in some of the tighter games. Or even a game like Bayern Munich, they could actually use that as a kind of an extra few percent to maybe get a result there where one wasn't expected. I think the Villa are going to finish in having a better season than Spurs. I think Villa are a little bit more balanced in terms of defence and attack. I think the Spurs, they've got lots of decent attackers, but they don't really have any elite ones. So I do think that they're going to come through periods where they struggle to score goals. And I think that it's just really hard to win football games when you're struggling to score goals week in, week out. I think Villa have got a more potent goal threat, so I think that will get them through over the course of a season.
Newcastle and Brighton have got no Europe, Keogh. Brighton have shown that they've got quality and the ability to go at anyone. Newcastle, a couple of years ago, showed that they could have the ability to go at anyone with no Europe. They'll be frustrated by the transfer window. I don't think you want either of them at the end of a week, if you sort of see what I mean. I think they're both going to prove, if you've played a big European game, you got them whacked in at the end of the week, and they're going to prove tough opponents for a number of sides. I think Newcastle currently feel a bit more downbeat than Brighton, who feel a bit back to their have-a-go selves. But I feel that both could get on a bit of a run and concern sides a little bit.
Yeah, because they are decent sides. But what you said there is when you play them after the Champions League game, and that's to be expected. You could probably say that for a couple of other teams as well, to be honest. Overall, throughout the season, I mean, I don't think we should be looking at these teams like they're on our shoulder. I think we're much better than these sides. So, yeah, the decent sides, and I wouldn't want to play them after a tough week. I agree with Mo as well. I think Villa are going to be slightly better than Spurs based on what I've seen so far. I like the manager as well, to be honest. I think he's great. I've always said that. So yeah, overall they don't threaten me. I'm not worried about them, but I don't want to go and play them after a tough Champions League game. You're right.
No, you don't want to do that. I think Chelsea are conceivably likeliest to be the strongest off the simple weight of good players. Josh, Conference League as well, rather than EL, which allows them who am I? Europa League, which allows them to rotate a little bit more. But they just seem so chaotic in general. You struggle to see them putting an actual run together. I think they'll be really weirdly about as disappointed as anyone with the way the game's going in that last round of fixtures before the first international break. They cannot be going 1-0 up against sides like Crystal Palace at home and not converting it. If they want to play in the big leagues with Liverpool and Arsenal and especially City, you can't be doing that at this sort of point. And even when you've got a week between games, I know they didn't. They were in a bit of a funny place, but they've just got to do the decent thing there. I was struck by that result. When it went 1-0 Chelsea, I thought these will be fine here. And then it goes the way it does, and they're already on 4, and we're on 9, and City are on 9, and you're already almost in the realm of they just may never entirely become our business now.
Yeah, well, their start of the season, it kind of epitomises them as a club at the minute. Like, I think they beat Wolves 6-2 or something, was it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they failed to beat Palace a week later. I think it was at home as well.
And that's it. They were in the lead. They were 1-0 up.
Yeah, they had the lead. But it's a good point that they've got just a massive squad full of. I mean, bottom line is just really good players. Like, so they should. That just should give them some form of edge if they use it. But then there's just so many intangibles surrounding Chelsea that makes me doubt whether they're a unit yet. And Maresca seems a bit spiky to me with some players and that, but. I don't know. They're intriguing to watch. I think because you say about Villa and Spurs, the whole fourth thing and playing with Europe and that. I do think that could cause problems. I think Villa, they lost Diaby in the summer. I think Bailey's just picked up an injury. I think so. In terms of wide players, I'm not sure what they're going to do there. Spurs just seem mad on the defensive side. They just seem to concede loads. And this is why I kind of think Brighton could be in for a good season, because I think it could be all the contenders for fourth could all have weird seasons, whereas Brighton have just really strengthened out of nowhere with lots of good players, got lots of depth. They haven't got Europe. They haven't lost yet, I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah, 7 points.
Two wins and the draw was at the Emirates. So it could be a mad season where Brighton end up sneaking fourth or something like that, but I agree with Keogh. I don't think any of these sides are anywhere near Liverpool's level. Like.
Well, I'm going to do two things. One is I'm going to ask you for what's a reasonable barometer for the season from here, from what we've talked about, from everything we've gone through, from the way in which it's been. You can pick your own barometer in a way. If you want to say this many points, you can do that. If you want to say this position, you can do that. If you want to say this many points, this position, and this in the Champions League, you can do that. You can pick your own barometer, but I am going to ask you one question. Last season, Liverpool finished 16 points clear of 5th. They finished third. They finished 16 points clear of 5th place. How many points do you think it'll be this season between Liverpool and 5th? Please, none of you say fucking minus. Otherwise, I'm getting off. Genuinely, what is your barometer, Mo, for a successful season from here? Do that. We'll go round, and then I'll do the points between now and 5th question.
Okay, so my barometer is... So we were in the title race last season in March, and then it went wrong. I want us to be there again. That's the first staging post. In March, I want us to still be legitimately talking about winning the title. I'd like us to still be in Europe as well. Maybe you call me greedy, but I think that those two things are eminently achievable.
So quarter-final of the Champions League and still in the shake-up, first, second week of April.
Yeah, and then obviously if we don't end up winning either of those, I'd like us to be within 1 or 2 wins of the title. Okay. I think that's fair. In terms of the 5th place, I think that gap will increase. So if it was 16 points last season, I think it'll be more this season.
Okay, above 60. Kia, what are you saying?
Similar to Mo, last year we were in a title race and we conceded for fun and we missed chances for fun. The problem's not that hard to fix, in my opinion. I understand how good City are, so saying win the league is a different kettle of fish. But I want to see us in a title race. I think we're good enough to be in a title race. Whether we win it or not is a separate issue. If we don't win it, I just want to finish the season with a belief that it's coming, which I feel like it is now. And I think if we run City close again, I feel like we'll be in a good stead to win it next year. Arsenal, I think we're better than. I know you said before that Arsenal and City go and do the thing. Let City break Arsenal. But if you ask me now, I'd be disappointed if we didn't eclipse Arsenal this season. Points ahead of 5th. It was 16 last year. I don't know what put you in. What 22?
22, my words. Okay, frisky 22. Go on, Josh. Barometer and then points ahead of 5th.
I think I pretty much agree with Mo, really. I expect us to go late into the Champions League, and in terms of the Premier League, compete for it. Last season we picked up 82 points. I think we can better that this season. I think we've got a very marginally, purely because of Chiesa, better squad than last season. And I think we have a manager that has looked at all of our weaknesses tactically and seems to be addressing them literally one by one and eradicating them. And because of that, we're getting more control over games and we're finding it easier to win games, and we seem to be getting fewer injuries so far. So, yeah, I think Liverpool can go late into the Champions League and genuinely challenge for it, potentially win it and stuff. And in the Premier League, just aim for 90 points. Whether you get it or not is another... Arsenal got an 89 last season, finished 2 points behind City on 91. Guardiola always hits that 9. He always gets that 91 or 90 or something like that. So just aim for that, get around that. Liverpool got 82 last season, so I think we can. I think that's realistic.
And how many points clear of 5th will that give us?
Yeah,
25?
22, I'm going to say.
22 as well,
yeah.
2 for 22. Mo more than 16 went from there, and that's where everyone's ended up sort of banking themselves, looking for that title push all the way through and going from there. It's been a pleasure. Really good Anfield Wrap. Thank you very much to Josh, to Mo and to Keo. Work through all the bits and pieces as you can. Please buy the book if you get the opportunity to do so. Come to the live events if you can. There'll be a lot of fun, I promise that. See you later on.